Hey, Cameron, how are you?
Hey, Michael, I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
I wanted to do this interview to get people familiar with the idea that there is a force influencing us, that there's this external energy that wants something from us, and many people have taken that into their body, into their soul, and allowed it to influence them. So I want to talk about that and how to identify it and what people can do to extract it or get rid of it, and how to identify that in other people, which I've had a lot of experience with. So what's the best way to describe you? Would I call you a healer or spiritual counselor?
Sure, both of those are fine with me. Mainly, my focus is on shifting energy. So energy clearing, healing, counseling. Yeah, that's my niche, so to speak.
And you help people to get rid of this, right? To get rid of these sort of, well, what kind of influence would you call them? You call it demonic influences, archonic influences?
I generally call them astral parasites, because to me that's the most clinically accurate way to describe these beings.
And they really are parasites, right? What they want in the end is energy, right?
Yes, that's what they're after. They're looking for energy. And they're looking for a variety or a wide spectrum of energy. Now, we often think that they're only after the negative emotions, but that's not all that they feed on. They can also feed on the energy of worship and adoration, which is why they come in the guise of ascended masters, angels, enlightened extraterrestrials, all of the things that speak to us at a deep archetypal subconscious level that we see as something beneficial, positive, beautiful, etc., they will exploit that, certain factions of them. And so that's the faction that I call the false light. So it's important to put out there right from the start that most of what is posing as the good guys, in the astral realm at least, most of them are not good guys. They are also astral parasites. They're just running a different game on our minds. They're looking for that worship energy, that adoration, looking for people to give their power to them, give their belief to them. And then on the other side of the spectrum, from those false light beings, we have the fully dark beings that we might think of, the more demonic, evil, feeding off of pain and anger, feeding off of the energy of death and human sacrifice, those types of more, I guess, standard evil, if you would call it that.
But, so we're talking about a lot of the people involved in the New Age, people that call themselves light workers.
Right, absolutely, and that's why I wrote that article last year of why I'm no longer a light worker, because I came to understand that the beings that had come to me as a child posing as the good guys were actually still just parasitic beings that were getting energy in a different way, having me and other people go on these missions in the astral realm at nighttime, which sounds weird to someone who's never experienced that, but for those who have woken up from what seemed like a dream but didn't seem like a dream, and it was extremely intense, and there was perhaps a battle going on or some sort of a struggle or doing some kind of a mission or whatever, and that they woke up feeling very drained, very tired. That they had expended a large amount of energy while sleeping, so instead of recharging and regenerating, that they actually had continued outputting energy at night while asleep. So once I came to the understanding that these beings did not have my best interests at heart, I began breaking any and all agreements that I had ever made with them, because any agreement based on deception is essentially an invalid contract. That's true in the physical realm and also in the non-physical.
So if someone thinks of themselves as light work and they're feeling drained, this is probably an area of being suspect, right?
Yes. I mean, as long as, physical health matters are tended to, if they're inexplicably drained, unexplainable feelings of lethargy and tiredness, waking up exhausted, having bizarre, intense, combative, or extremely, let's say, emotionally charged dreams, those are signs that a person is being manipulated by these astral parasites.
But it could also be outright attack, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it can definitely feel like psychic attack, especially when you displease them or tell them to go take a hike because you're not going to be part of their little party anymore. Then the psychic attacks come in, and that can happen awake or asleep. In fact, I've found for a lot of people, they'll be fine during the day, but then when they go to sleep, then they'll get attacked. And usually that attack will come in the form of being pursued in a dream and trying to get away from these beings, or being thrust into some kind of a scenario that is not their own. In other words, they're not dreaming this thing, they're being put into a situation in their dream time. So our own dreams, when we're just in our subconscious mind processing whatever is in the subconscious to be addressed, they tend to be much more calm, and even if there's an emotional content that needs to be addressed, those dreams don't generally have bizarre dangers lurking around every corner or bizarre levels of violence and that type of a thing. So when the dreams get really weird, that's when you want to start thinking about, okay, this seems like an attack / an external imposition onto my consciousness.
So if someone's in that position now, and then I want to move forward to more simple approach, but just for the light workers out there that feel drained and maybe feel like they're starting to get a sense they're not on the right path, it's not working. What I've noticed about a lot of my New Age friends is they never move forward, but they're always, channeling these beings, and they're basically slaves to these beings. And they never really get any truth. I mean, truth from my perspective, not turn left, turn right, but actual real truth on how to empower themselves. And they want to break free of it. You're saying that they need to start breaking these contracts, or break all of them, actually, right? Not start.
Right. I mean, what I would start with is, well, first of all, the very, very, very first thing is get grounded. See, most of the astral beings want us to be ungrounded so that we're weaker and we're easier to control, manipulate, and drain energy from. So by being grounded, by connecting one's heart to the heart of the planet, and really deepening that grounded energy every single day, that gives you a baseline. It gives us a place where we can start to work from. And then we have to get into exerting our inner power, actually bringing forward our inner power. Because like you mentioned, the people that are asking their guides or angels or whatever every question about what they should do in their life, they are abdicating their power. They're giving that power on a silver platter to these astral beings, and that's, again, part of that energy draining dynamic. So we have to engage our own inner self, our own inner wisdom, and get to know what we are on the inside, what we truly are. Because, see, we think we are this one human incarnation. We think we are the sum total of the memories and experiences we've had in our current lifetime. But what we actually are is much larger, much deeper, much more profound than that, much more powerful than that. So we have to get in touch with that deeper aspect of ourselves, begin to know that we are much more powerful. And then once we have a sense, at least a beginning sense of that inner power, then we can call up contracts, agreements that we have made with beings. And one place to start is to simply call up every agreement that one has made with any beings that don't truly have their best interest in heart. Or their best interest in mind, I should say. These beings have very little heart, but they have a lot of mind energy. So those that do not have your best interest in mind, call up all of those agreements and begin to render them null and void. Break the contract, shred the contract in your mind, completely remove any and all aspects, facets to the agreements. Now, I don't want to belabor this for too long, but I do have an extensive write-up on this on my blog. So that's ascensionhelp.com, ASCENSION help.com. Go to the blog and just type in the search box Lightworker. And there's 2 articles, Why I'm No Longer a Lightworker, Part 1 and Part 2. Part 2 deals with the beings that often call themselves the Lords of Karma. And these are some classic parasitic beings who manipulate people after they die. They pull them out into the astral realm so that the person can't actually go back to source reality. So there's a difference between source reality and the astral realm. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But these beings pull the person into the astral realm, or the now dead person, the being. At this point, they don't have a body. And they give them a little replay of their life. They focus on their mistakes. They focus on the guilt. They drain a little bit of energy. Maybe they tell them you get to spend a little time in the heavenly realm, but then you have to go back because your soul is not evolved enough, or whatever excuse they need to tell that person to either drain them directly in the astral realm, that happens, or send them back to Earth where they can continue to drain them from a distance. So either way, it results in an energy drain. So go to that pair of articles, and in the second one I list a very detailed process for revoking agreements that have been made. Now, also it's important, once you begin revoking agreements, you have to take back your power, take back your energy that has gone to these beings. And there is going to be a little bit of a struggle, but I do encourage you to avoid trying to fight or harm these beings, because that is not a good use of our energy. These beings are very difficult to actually harm, and ultimately that's a waste of your time and your energy. But you can put your energy into taking your power back, taking back the energy that has been drained away. You can get that energy back, tell these beings, essentially tell them to piss off and leave you alone. And you may have to tell them this multiple times. These are very persistent beings. They're very aggressive. They are also, as I mentioned, quite heartless and extremely mentally focused on their goals and agendas, which is to propagate their current existence, their current survival, which has been built on the backs of humankind.
So let's say that someone decides to do this. They go to your site, they break free, and immediately they maybe start to experience chaos and resistance. In my perspective, I understand that that's the fight to break free. Some people may take those challenges as not a good sign. What would you say about that?
Well, it might be disturbing and distressing, absolutely. I can tell you I've been there. I've gone through that in multiple ways, multiple levels for quite a long time. Like I said, it was only really, a little over a year ago, once I had the big breakthrough where I came to the understanding of what was going on and the level of deception and manipulation that has been levied against beings, humans, who were recruited to be quote-unquote light workers. So when things get weird, I would recommend just persevere, just push through it. Continue to strengthen your resolve. Keep drawing on your inner source of strength, your sovereign core being. Some people call it higher self, but it's really only the higher self when we are not embodying it, because it is literally floating up above a person's head. So we bring that energy back down. That's one of the first things we do. Now on the website I have a series of clearing steps called the self-clearing system. That's on the main side of Ascension Health. Just click on Start here. And that first exercise is the quote-unquote higher self meditation to get yourself back in your body so that you can embody your true sovereign core. So keep drawing on that strength, even as things get weird, even as people around you get weird. Now, that's something I know you want to touch on as well, Michael, but I'll just, in brief, address a couple of points. So, as a person is breaking free from astral manipulation, the astral manipulators will do their best to subtly manipulate that person and their environment to generate the maximum amount of chaos. And often what they'll do is they'll put a little astral implant into a person's subconscious mind, usually while they're asleep. And if you ever have a dream where some authority figure tries to give you something or make you read something, that is often a way of embedding an astral implant into a person's energy field or getting them to agree to something. So if they're trying to make you sign something in a dream, or even just to read a piece of paper, or if they're flashing an identity badge pretending like they're from the government or whatnot, that is usually an astral being attempting to re-establish an agreement or a contract. So what will often happen with certain kinds of astral implants is that the implant itself will generate a dissonance pattern from inside of the person's subconscious mind. So the person themselves are now emitting a frequency that the people around them will find irritating, and the people in their lives will then perceive themselves as being irritated by this person for quote-unquote no reason. They're just mad at you for no reason, it would seem. And they might even say later, yeah, I don't know why. I just suddenly got really mad at you and felt like telling you every little judgment that I've ever had about you, or whatever it happens in that particular circumstance. So they actually will attempt to use our own subconscious minds against us. So this brings us into an important aspect, which is working on the subconscious mind, going through the various compartments within the subconscious and clearing out whatever in there is either not you or doesn't belong, or perhaps, and very importantly, clearing out any unprocessed or unhealed emotional wounds from the past, which get stored in the subconscious, and those wounds are weaknesses that the astral parasites can exploit in order to regain access to a person. So it's really important to address those and to persevere with it, and don't expect that it's going to magically resolve itself in a week. Depending on how special you are to them, how much they have targeted you or perhaps invested energy into you, the battle, so to speak, the struggle can be quite lengthy. It can take months, it could take years. Not to say that it's going to be constant, but I hear this a lot. People are feeling great for a month or so, things are going wonderfully, and then all of a sudden in their dreams they get hammered, they wake up in a bad mood, and everything goes downhill, and suddenly they find themselves kind of back in a bad place. So it's really important to work your way back out of that methodically, systematically. Look for any intrusion points, look for any astral implants that have been put into your energy field, put into your subconscious, get rid of them, and continue to fill yourself up with the truth of your being, with your sovereign self.
One of the things that we should probably address is it's not just us as individuals that feed energy, but there's a whole system here that delivers energy. So you may be clear and feeling good and then decide, hey, I'm going to go do this great thing in the world that's going to really change things. At the same time, it sort of bucks the system. It threatens to challenge the matrix. So all of a sudden you get attacked, or you have chaos, or the bottom falls out of something and throws you into distraction mode. So I talk about this in an article I wrote called Does Evil Exist? On selfhealinggroup.com. What would you say about those of us that know we're here to create change and are facing that again and again and again because we decide, okay, I'm going back in, I'm going to create more change, help the world, change the world, free the world, whatever it is that threatens these archons, these demonic parasites. What would you say about that? I mean, do you factor that in now, or have you passed that stage?
Yeah, no, I definitely factor that in. I don't think let's just put it like this. I don't think we get clear of this until it's fully clear, meaning that the astral levels have been cleaned out and these beings have been addressed and either, let's say, contained or perhaps healed. Because many of these beings are insane. They're psychopathic. They've absolutely lost their way because they have engaged the illusion of separation from Source as far as it can possibly go. They're actually more separate from Source than we find ourselves or we perceive ourselves to be. But again, that's a perception. I consider it actually an illusory perception. But they have taken that illusion as far as they can go. So for those of us that are continuing to do good works in the world, so to speak, who are working to bring knowledge and wisdom and illumination to others, and we know we're going to be getting some backlash, make sure you're well shielded for starters. Shield yourself, your home, your environment. Also make sure that the people that you're working with can present a unified front with you, that they can keep themselves clear, that they are doing their own inner work, working on their unhealed wounds, working on whatever shadow aspects within themselves that they have, so that they can't be easily turned against you. And when you feel a dissonance download, is one way to put it, where let's say you're hanging out with someone, everything's cool, and then all of a sudden what seems like nothing sparks a big argument between the two of you. Some little comment you made and the other person reacted in an over-the-top way, and now maybe the two of you are arguing or fighting. As soon as you realize what's going on, say, hang on a second, I think we're being messed with here. Because everything was cool up until like 2 minutes ago, and then that one thing was said, and now we're here at this place. So let's just calm it down, let's just relax, let's clear out our energy, let's clear out our space, and keep things moving. And that usually will take care of it, because these beings are these astral parasites, they are very economical with their energy. They know they're working in extreme limitation, in that they have to get their energy from others. They have to get that energy from human beings. So they won't usually invest a massive amount of energy into attacking someone. They can, but usually they will try to just tip the balance, tip you off balance, or tip someone in your life off balance, just enough to create an argument, to create the dissonance. And also that...
Well, I think it's the level that you're playing at. So my understanding of it is these beings or these energies recognize our soul when we come in. So if let's say you're here to do something really big, they may interfere with you the most. Like demonic attack in dreams, or whatever kind of attack you're going to get in dreams in every other area of your life. Now, I've experienced this my entire life with really weird, bizarre stuff ever since I was a child. And so I think, if you're here to move a big energy or do something big in a very positive way that's breaking apart the matrix and slavery here, then you need to realize you need to come up with a counter strategy.
Right.
Whereas if you just live your everyday life, they're probably just going to leave you alone and get whatever little energy they can get off you. But if you're a big soul moving big energy, you really need to be extremely educated about this.
Absolutely. So, yeah, they will invest more energy in larger attacks if you're about to do something really big. So, as an example, as I was writing that first No Longer a Lightworker article, for a solid week, I was encountering layer after layer after layer of opposition. Now, I had also kind of kicked the hornet's nest because I was breaking away from all of these beings as rapidly as I could. But they were definitely coming at me really strong, and they came after me really strong afterwards as well. But, it's like when you stand in your power and say, absolutely not, I'm not going to accept this energy. In fact, I'm going to, right now, just dissolve, dispel, and disintegrate everything coming at me. What that does is it turns you from a source of energy. If you're battling them back, you can actually give them energy. But if you simply stand in your power and say, I'm going to just erase all of this stuff. And as that stuff is getting erased, then they will eventually back off, because now they're not getting any energy reflected back. When I'm doing that, I'm actually serving as a sink, an energy sink. They're just sinking energy into attacking me, and it's getting them nothing. And that backs them off pretty quick, because they want a counter attack of some kind. And that's why I mentioned earlier, attacking them back is not very fruitful. But if you can simply disintegrate what they're hurling at you, they'll back off pretty quick, because they're not getting a return on that energetic investment. So that's one
again,
aspect.
I want to put a disclaimer there. I think you have to know the level you're at, and what you're here to do. And if that's a really big thing, you can expect a lot of resistance, and that's been my experience. So
absolutely,
a lot of people not doing much, just living a very comfortable everyday life, and get some resistance when they decide to go in a challenging direction. But when they back down, things get calm again and comfortable again. So
right.
if you're in a position where you absolutely feel your mission is to do whatever that's important, that bucks the system, that is going to take away energy from the system, just know that you really have to probably deal with this in a complex way. So listening to your stuff, listening to yourself, really being aware of how you manage your energy. I just want to throw that in there again, because I know we started off pretty deep here, so I just decided
yes, I know.
We'll stay on the deep end.
Yeah, we're exactly. We'll just play in the deep end. Yeah, so for someone who wants maybe a more quiet life, it may not be as intense as what we're describing here. So we're talking kind of extreme scenarios. I've certainly lived many extreme scenarios in this whole endeavor. So that's the place where I'm speaking from. But yeah, I've definitely had clients who really just want to embody their sovereignty and have, let's say, a normal life, right? They are generally quite successful at that, because they just need to break off a few unsavory agreements, make a few disconnections, and those beings will just, essentially cut them loose, just say, fine, whatever. But I've had dream time on position, especially from a very, very early age. I remember the majority of my dreams, or let's say, I remember a lot of dreams. I don't remember every single dream. And I have a continuity of dream experience going back to a very young age, first and second grade even. And yeah, I can recall some very early attacks in the dream time. So they definitely select some of us for special treatment. Absolutely.
I've had that experience. So, so based on what we've said, I think it's important to recognize that you may be feeling great in life, but with this interview and other stuff that's out there, realize, wait, something is not right. I'm a light worker, right? And I know so many people that are well-meaning that think of themselves as light workers, or psychics or mediums or channelers, and they're comfortable. But at some point, if they decide to break free, all of a sudden they may experience this chaos, and maybe even some guide comes in and says, "Hey, you need to turn left. You can't go right." And I want to address that. I want to, again, address those people that are deciding to break against that and set themselves free, because there probably is a certain amount of addiction, or you could call it comfort, but really sort of an addiction energy, because these beings, they will loop energy back to you, right, as a reward for feeding them. Is that true in your opinion?
Yes, if it suits them, they will. If you're playing in their game in the way that they want you to play, then they will, or they can, give you some positive feedback, a little return on your energetic investment that you've given to them. It won't be obviously anything near what the person has actually given to them, but it will be something back, and it will generally also take the form of a certain amount of protection against other astral parasites. So, for example, let's say someone has formed a relationship with a so-called ascended master, and I say so-called because they are astral parasites posing as enlightened beings who have exited the human system of reincarnation, but they're actually out on that astral level and they're far, far away from source. So or let's just say if person A has established that relationship and they're perhaps channeling this ascended master, giving readings and giving advice, well, that being, because they have invested time and energy into cultivating that connection and cultivating that energy transfer from the person to the master, right? And it is a slave master dynamic, by the way. So they've cultivated that person. They're going to make sure that other astral parasites don't intrude on their turf. So it's kind of like picking the devil that you know in that situation. Now, once a person figures out that it's not a beneficial relationship, and I get emails like this all the time, Michael, where people tell me, "Wow, I read your article, and it makes perfect sense. I had something really similar. I had this relationship with a so-called ascended master. He said I was his twin flame," which I hear that one a lot, by the way. Ascended masters telling women that they are their twin flames and that they're going to have a very special relationship and they're going to groom them for a very special role in the world, on and on and on. These beings are really talented manipulators. They're some of the best manipulators really in the universe. So it's no shame to admit that you've been fooled by these beings. Most people have to one extent or another. So you want to break that agreement. And when you do that, yeah, you're going to expect a little bit of backlash or maybe a lot of backlash, depending on what you plan on doing next, right? If you just plan on having a quiet, simple life, you might not have a ton of backlash. But if you plan on going out and speaking out and sharing your story, sharing your experience, being really public, then you can expect a little more backlash. Now, I don't want you, and you meaning whoever's listening, I don't want you to be afraid of that backlash, because you are actually greater than these beings are. And you have to remember that. You have to know that at the core of your being, you are incredibly powerful, far more powerful than these beings are. Because all you really have to do is take a look at the dynamic, the true dynamic, which is that they are dependent on you. But what they try to do is make us dependent on them. Now, they do have the advantage of being in the astral realm and being able to look a little further down the timeline. And so they could tell you, yeah, turn right here, turn left up there, and you'll get a really good parking spot, right? Like, I'm sure we all know people who get good parking spots because their guides tell them where to park or whatever, right? So the guide role is also a dependency role. They're trying to make us dependent on them for guidance, right? So the person continues asking this being over and over again for more and more advice, what they should do with their life, who they should be with, where they should live, where they should work, what even careers that they should be involved in. And they continue to transfer their power to this being. But that being is really, in truth, dependent on the human. But they make the human dependent on them in order to receive that power and energy. So we have to know that we're far more powerful than they are. And stand in that power and declare, I will not be your slave, I will not be your victim anymore. This whole relationship is over. And yeah, in some ways it is. It's like breaking up. It's like getting out of a bad codependent or abusive relationship, especially for women who have been convinced that they are the twin flame of some so-called ascended master.
And I've actually seen that. I've been around a lot of channelers. I've traveled a lot. I've made it a thing that whenever I'm in a different town, I go visit a lot of these different spiritual groups, whether it's Hare Krishna or channelers or whatever. I've seen people channel and go through all these experiences, and have their ego flattered that they're going to be some prolific being that's going to do these amazing things. And, after all these years, I've actually seen people die and never accomplish any of that. But meanwhile, they gave themselves to these beings and created these relationships, sometimes romantic, even if in an astral way, still romantic. It's tragic to watch, to see people manipulate. And I've noticed the majority of people that I personally know on the channel, eventually that agenda comes out, whether you want to call it sort of the New World Order or the Illuminati. Behind the scenes is that it's all feeding into that matrix, the matrix of control, this hologram that we see. And most people don't understand that we're living in a projection. So how would you describe the matrix for both the layman and for more sophisticated people? How can we easily define this experience of Earth that we're living in?
So the way I would describe it is that it is a veil in our minds, and that it exists within our minds and is powered by our mental and emotional energy. So the matrix itself wraps around the Earth. It keeps certain galactic energies out as much as it can, and it also keeps human consciousness from going out beyond the planet. Now, if a person, for example, has an astral projection experience and they try to leave the planet, they'll encounter this barrier, this membrane at some point. They may be allowed to pass through it, but they'll eventually, of course, snap back into their body. Now, the matrix is everywhere in a sense, right? I mean, that movie did a good job of cryptically revealing certain aspects of the control grid, because it's embedded into even our DNA, really. It's been there for so long, it's been imprinted for so long through generations of conditioning. A lot of it is conditioning, it's mind control, it's social engineering, social steering. It's even in the language that we speak, Michael. English itself is a derivative of many other languages, and the way that it has been structured even is designed to limit the way we can think. Now, certain Romance languages, they are much more picture-oriented. As they're describing things, they are creating pictures in the person's mind, whereas English tends to be much more left-brained and much more clinical. So it's in our language, it's in politics, it's in the hierarchies that surround us. And hierarchy is a key aspect of this entire matrix. That we're told on a regular basis that we are simply a cog in a gigantic machine. And so that's happening on a physical level, and it's happening on an astral level. They try to make us cogs in the astral machine as well. So everything that reduces the human to an insignificant nothing, just a cog in a wheel in a big machine. All of this is the matrix. It's in the financial system. It's in the tax system. It's in the governmental system. Every system on this planet, especially if it's hierarchical, supports this overall matrix. Now, of course, there are breakaways and attempted breakaways, and the ones that are successful, they do not organize themselves in hierarchical ways. Because as soon as you have hierarchy, you have a loss of freedom, a loss of sovereignty, a loss of individuality and individual decision-making. When you're in a hierarchy, you have to do what your boss tells you, and then you tell your underlings to do what the boss above you told you, and they have to obey you, and you have to make sure that they get those particular orders done. So it's vast, it's massive, it's all-pervasive. And the way out is, well, first to recognize what the issue is. The big problem really is hierarchy and lack of individual sovereignty. Once we begin to take back our sovereignty, once we begin to actually ground ourselves and start to access that heart space, that's really vital, because we access source reality through the heart. It's a heart-to-heart connection. The head brain can comprehend it, can understand it if it's being fed from the heart. You have to get the head in sync with the heart. That's very important as well. We can't just be left brain robotic order followers. We have to get our whole brain going, get our creativity going, start doing something creative, whether it's art or gardening, design of anything, whatever your individual creative outlet is. Maybe it's making films, maybe it's making music. Get that creativity going, get the whole brain firing, then connect the heart brain and the head brain. And I do say heart brain very clearly. There are three brains in the body: the head, the heart, and in the gut. I call it the gut brain, the belly brain. We have three brains. These are our three major energy centers, and we need to begin working with all three of them, aligning them, sharing energy and information between them. So when the belly brain, when you get that gut feeling that you shouldn't do something, listen to that. That's one of your brains giving you feedback and information. Don't just override that with the conscious brain. So in a nutshell, the matrix would be the reduction of a human being to an extremely limited left brain cog in a machine, and that's what we have to transcend.
So for the layperson, are you possessed? Are you sovereign? What does that mean? For the everyday person just living their life that may not even realize that there's something getting a free ride on their back.
Well, yeah, that's a good starting point, right? A person should ask themselves, am I sovereign? They should also contemplate what that really means to be sovereign. Because the definition is that we do not have any rulers, any masters. And if we have masters, if we have rulers, if we have a master-disciple relationship, which is really a master-slave relationship with some so-called ascended being or angel or archangel or whatever hierarchical astral parasite is presenting themselves as something wonderful, if we have that kind of relationship, then we're not truly sovereign. Because to be sovereign, you have to at least have an inkling of self-knowledge, of your true self, your sovereign core, beyond your human identity. That's the beginning point, recognizing that you're more than this singular incarnation. Now, as far as possession goes, most people have astral entities that are along for the ride. They can enter from traumatic experiences, so especially in childhood. Beings will come in and attach to a person because of a particular trauma that they may have suffered. And that's one reason why there is a deliberate effort to traumatize everyone in the world to some degree or another. Even birth trauma. The way that births are handled in the medical system is actually designed to traumatize that infant. So if you have traumas that you haven't healed, then most likely there are going to be some astral beings along for the ride. But even for...
These traumas are obsessions, right? So they're traumatized and they're obsessing on their pain, whether it was death in the family or something they don't feel right about in life. That's a gateway for these parasitic astral beings to come in, right?
Right. And it can, even if it's not a constant obsession, if it hasn't been healed, really healed to the point where when you go back in your mind and you look at the event, it's as if you're reading a story in a book or watching something on a television screen, that it's just an event that happened. It's something that happened. We're not denying that it occurred, but it's just an event. It's no longer a trauma, no longer a huge emotional surge associated with that. And depending on the severity of the trauma, that can take a lot of work. Now, trauma can also be stored physically in the body as well. So sometimes energy work isn't enough to fully heal or discharge a trauma. For anyone who wants a good physical method, I would recommend a product called Trauma Release Exercises. There's a DVD that they sell on their website. The people that are involved in this give classes as well. And it's a way to physically discharge the trauma by invoking tremors or shaking in the body, which begins to release the trauma from the psoas muscle, which is a very deep muscle that goes from the inner thigh through the hips and connects to the lower spine. And it's very large, very strong muscle that most people don't know about because it's covered with other tissue. But that muscle tends to hold undischarged traumas. So I do encourage people to check out trauma release exercises. Just Google that phrase, you'll come to their website, and give that a shot. So getting rid of traumas, as in getting rid of the emotional charge attached to them, is very important. Now, obviously, we're not erasing the past, we're not denying that it happened, and we're not trying to bury it, we're not trying to suppress it. That's the opposite of what we want to do. In order to clear it, we need to bring it forward, clear out the charge from it, discharge it, so that it's just an event. That's very important. Now, also, if we're in our daily lives, we are submitting to an aggressor in whatever way. So this could be a person with their boss. This could be a person with their spouse. If we are hiding our true self, if we are concealing our true self in order to please someone else, we're not sovereign. It's that simple. Now, I'm not telling the listeners go out and quit your job, but I would recommend go out and work on changing jobs, change your career path even. If you're a cog in a corporate environment, find something else that you're passionate about. Because I'm pretty sure most people working in corporate environments, not all, but most, aren't particularly passionate about what they're doing. So you should enjoy what you're doing. You should have passion for it. You should feel good about doing that thing. It shouldn't just be something you do because you can do it and it pays the bills. And I know a lot of people are in that situation. I've certainly been there in my past as well. But it's much more rewarding to do something that you actually care about, have passion for, and that brings a person one step closer to being more sovereign. Now, also in relationships, if you're having to acquiesce to a bully, whether it's a parent, a spouse, hopefully not your child, but whatever's going on there, do what you need to do to correct that. Get away from the person if you have to, but start with setting healthy boundaries. Start by telling them not to talk to you in that way, not to try to push you around. Don't allow someone to tell you what you can and can't think or can and cannot express. And if you have to verbalize that, if you have to get into an argument even about it, draw that line. Keep drawing it. And if the other person won't respect that, then move away from that relationship. Even if it's the closest relationship, the strongest relationship in your life. If they're preventing you from being you, from expressing yourself, then you're not sovereign.
Why don't these beings like the truth? One of the most simple ways they keep the influence out, whether it's business or relationships or people I'm interacting with, is I just basically will speak the truth. And what I found in my space, which I believe is pretty clear, is that those situations will just be cast out. Not allowing the game to be there keeps the influence out. But what is it about these beings or these entities or energies that don't want, why is it they can't move in that energy of truth? And I found that to be sort of a universal truth in dealing with them, is that they, once you bring the truth in, they're and no more game, it's like they're out. They won't stay in those spaces. They're
sure, well,
for the lie.
Yeah, well, their entire existence is predicated on deception. And so truth is literally the exact opposite of everything that they do. They're relying on our, first of all, ignorance and also our false beliefs in order to empower them. They're relying on us believing in a very fundamental lie, which is that we are nothing more than just a tiny little human being, just a blob of cells that happen to congregate and began to spark enough neurons in the brain to produce a form of consciousness that is inferior to much larger, more evolved beings that exist in these so-called higher planes. But that's a lie as well. And even the idea that the astral plane is a higher, better plane, a better place in the physical realm, is another one of their deceptions. From my own experience, I've found that to access source reality, we need to go inwards. We go into our heart and hook our heart to the heart of the planet, perhaps the heart of the sun or the heart of the galaxy. But it's always a heart-to-heart connection that is achieved by first going in and then perhaps going down into the heart of the planet, for example. Whereas the astral religious ideas always posit that heaven is, of course, outside of us, up above us, and something we have to earn our way into. We have to please a god or a group of gods or lords of karma or whoever, whatever authority figure. We have to jump through the right hoops, do the right things in order to elevate ourselves from being unworthy to being worthy enough to be admitted into heaven. But the truth is that we are extensions of what I call the source. We are extensions of a creative power so vast that it boggles the human mind to even contemplate. But nonetheless, we are extensions of that. We are incredibly powerful beings, and our home is in source reality. We have no home in the astral realm. We should not be in that environment more than we absolutely have to. So for those of us who our calling is to work on clearing out to the astral realm, we have to spend some time there and we have to engage it. And we are indeed coupled to the astral realm, just as we're coupled to the physical realm to an extent. But our true home, once we're done with the physical realm, our true home is back in source reality. And that's where I think we are supposed to go. We are not supposed to be drawn up into the astral realm, but through deception of religion and just various deceptive concepts, humans have been conditioned to believe that we are supposed to try to go up and into heaven, try to get admitted into heaven so that we can then live out eternity at the right hand of God or Jesus or whatever. So the deceptions are incredibly numerous. They go back far, far into ancient history, and they're layered on each other. So once we start to learn the truth and we start to pull on that thread, we start to unravel the lies that they have woven together for us. And as we keep engaging more truth and insisting on the truth, no matter what it is, no matter how uncomfortable it might be, no matter what, let's say, preconceived notions that we had cherished, no matter what beliefs that we have held as sacred in our minds get cast aside in the light of truth. If we insist on the truth, that is the way out of this mess. That's the way out of this matrix, is to always insist on the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. It's better to know an uncomfortable truth than to believe a happy, comforting lie.
The slavery is buying into stories, into the story of you, into the story of what you believe. Whether it's, Christianity and the many variations or New Age, I think they're all to some degree a false reality, because we're part of everything. We're not just some object of what we think and feel and our agendas, but we're part of everything. I had a experience years ago with a girlfriend where she said, okay, Michael, go into this past life, right? So I did. And I went into I was a child and I was in France and I felt very alone and I was really starting to buy into that emotion. And then for whatever reason, I just had awakening within that experience and realized, whoa, this is bullshit. And once I did that, I immediately projected out of that lifetime, out of my current existence, and I went into the unlimitedness. And I could actually see, I don't know if you ever had the experience, but I could actually see my girlfriend at the time was continuing to talk, and as she was talking, I could see all she was doing is basically channeling the thoughts that were being projected to her. She wasn't actually, these weren't actually her thoughts. It was like a program being projected onto her, and she was just doing that, and I was trying to explain to her that's bullshit. What you think and what you believe is just a piece of crap. We're all part of this everything, and we're like a grain. We're the entire beach and the ocean and everything, and we're acting like one little grain of sand when in fact we are the whole thing. And that, I think that's the main thing to break free of the matrix, is that people need to understand that they are part of everything. Even that stuff that we want to judge and say bad is not actually bad. It's just a thing with a different function. So if you can identify that you are this free being within the whole system, and at the minimum be true to what you want to be in that experience. If you look at the body, there's some cells that are killing other cells and some cells that are dying, and other cells that are helping the body, and the nerves are creating a function. That's the reality of life and creation, is that we're part of everything. And you're free if you choose to be, and you can let go of the judgment of what everyone else is doing. And that's the key, I think, is to realize that you are free, and not to have judgment about your experience or other people's judgment, but to make clear decisions about what you want to experience, and step out of that slavery of, well, I have this heritage, or I have to do this mission, or whatever. That's the first step, I think, really, to break out of this, just to realize this is bullshit. We are in a projected game. The end game is to get energy. Now, I happen to know enough about the inside to know that on the inside, the goal is always to get energy. When you own the bank or the World Bank and you're on the back end, it's not about money, it's about the energy. That energy is what really creates what we can use to create our reality, whatever we want it to be. And again, that takes you into another level of slavery, that you're looking to get things. This comfortable situation, this house, this car, this particular relationship just keeps you victimized into the slavery of the matrix. It's not that we can't have that stuff, but I think that stuff should come is part of a natural evolution of the contributions we're making. So it comes to like, what is your intention as a soul, as your core being, what you want to do, and that's what I'm going to do. And you can live that way. Like I've proven it to myself many times. Maybe it's not always glamorous, but you know what? You don't have the baggage that these parasites, these archons, these demons, beings want to keep you entrapped into. So we can move forward, and I think there's going to be a division, and I know there's going to be a division in 2019 where people simply decide we want the change, we want the truth, we really want to create this better world, and the other half that wants to stay part of the system, they want to stay comfortable, but it's just not going to be possible to be neutral in the future. Do you have any comments about that? Because I call it the Great Divide. 2019 is going to be the Great Divide, when these changes are really going to become apparent, that like you're either on one side or the other side. And I've had many prophecies about the future, and to date, none of them have ever been off. And I've really never seen anyone talking about it. I know the Illuminati is very into 2012 was sort of the launch of their 7-year Messiah energy, and that starts the pinnacle in 2019 and really becomes to the surface on 2020. So I think that's part of the reason of doing these calls. I call them the Archon Archives, because there's a lot of footage and stuff I've done in the past that I've never released. Thought it was too deep and too complicated, but I've been getting a lot of intuitive inner feeling to like it's time. So take it from there. But that's sort of my angle on how I see freedom working. You can live and you can thrive. And even if you're not thriving, there's a period there where you just have to learn sort of the system, the free system, which is laid here in the Matrix. And part of the way to untangle yourself is to be in that truth. Not, like you're saying, you got to heal it. It's like, this happened, it's okay. But if you're focused on certain things or objectives and you're trying to play games to get that, you really are a slave, and that's where these beings come in. I don't know what exactly it is, but they cannot, for some reason, they cannot sit in the energy of truth. And I filmed a medical doctor named Dr. Lodi, and he was saying the same thing. If you really want to, he's an alternative cancer specialist, MD, and he was saying, look, if you want to really heal, you need to be in the energy of truth, and you need to stop lying and stop bullshitting people, whether it's your partner or whatever, or yourself. I find people even lie to themselves to play these games. It's tragic for me to see, because there's people I've cared about a lot, and they get stuck in it, and they're in that loop, and there's like, they have a hard time getting out of it. I don't think it's hard to break. It's not hard to break free if you start resonating with truth. But if you want to keep manipulating, then somehow you've subjected yourself to being manipulated by forces outside of us. These astral parasites should not be some kind of weird thing, because we have real physical parasites that affect what we want to eat, right? And even though they might be microscopic, they really are influencing us. So I just really feel like it's time for a group to be free. I know there's a lot of people craving it, and I want to create a space where maybe a collective group of people that want to be free can come together and thrive together and share our experience so other people can benefit. People that are ready to break free. It really is like the Matrix movie. Those guys tuned into how it works and what's next. And so now we have a group of us, I see, that are revealing all this information. For me, I backed off a lot publicly, but in my personal life, I really live on the deeper side. And I'd like to see a group of people come through and experience the stuff we're talking about and make it to the other side and realize there is another side. So what is your experience of the other side, now that you've been like sort of really disengaged from the Matrix and the slavery of the archons and the parasites? How do you feel about being on the other side?
Well, I'm definitely happy about it, and it's subtle, It's a different type of an energy, though, and the key, really, the core of that energy is a sense of calm and sense of inner peace, not feeling random, chaotic fears that seem to come from nowhere, not feeling a lot of anxiety on a day-to-day basis about day-to-day living or small things here and there. I do definitely see people breaking free more and more, and one of the last things really to break free from is this, what I call it the new cage movement, to break free from this golden cage that these astral parasites have gilded and decorated very nicely, and told people, yes, if you just establish this master-slave relationship with your guide or your ascended master or whatever, that all will be well and we will tell you how to live. Now this, of course, ties into this idea that there will be an ET intervention where they will come in and make all of the bad people in the world stop doing bad things, and they will bring us free energy and all of that. But that also is another level of entrapment, to be essentially dependent once again on an outside authority. And that's really the key, is that I don't depend on any outside authority. I connect with Source because I'm an aspect of Source, but I don't worship or supplicate myself to the infinite Source. It is the Source. It is. It doesn't need me to even acknowledge it, really. But of course I do acknowledge it, and I'm grateful to it for being part of it. But I don't worship it. I don't give power to it. It doesn't need my power. That's an important thing. A sovereign person doesn't need anyone else's power. Right? So I don't have to feel like I need to get someone to listen to me or believe me or hear my opinions on things so that I can get that support from someone else who believes in my ideas or my thing. So many people group together based on common beliefs. And I think as we get more sovereign, we won't have such of a need to do that, but we will, as sovereign beings, begin to coalesce under a common sense ideal that we need to, in order to consider ourselves and our planetary civilization ascended, to consider ourselves ascended, to consider our planet having reached a point of what we could say is a milestone, that we have ascended to a very powerful level, a high level of existence, is that every single person on the planet, with no exceptions, has all of their basic needs met and a little bit more. So all of their shelter, clothing, food, water, education, internet access, their community, everyone has all of these things as their birthright, and that those are automatically provided for everyone, and that we are going to work to build a system that actually does this. Not in any kind of hierarchical or enslaving way, not to house people in tiny little boxes in megacities or any of that insanity that the so-called Illuminati want to impose on people, but rather where everyone is and where everyone wants to be. That's where they can live, that's where they can make their home, that's where they can have their bit of land to grow some food, to come together in a community sense, to share the food, to share the meals, to educate ourselves and educate each other. That is the type of freedom and sovereignty that we're going to work towards building. Because right now, what we're immersed in with the so-called law of attraction, for example, it's all being presented in a very narrow-minded, selfish way, that each individual should simply create their reality for themselves, and that they can create for themselves all of the materialistic things that they desire, and that somehow makes them spiritual if they attain that. And for the people that are perhaps starving or homeless, well, that they created that for themselves. And that type of shallow callousness is what we need to transcend. When I start to hear these law of attraction people actually talking about what I just said, of working towards creating a reality where everyone has their basic needs provided for. Now, I'm not saying everyone's going to have, be living in a mansion, but everyone should have certainly a comfortable home, right? Transportation as well. The ability to derive energy from the sun, from the environment. All of these things are what we should be working towards for everyone to have. Not just, oh, I can create for myself a big house, nice cars, lots of money, all of that stuff. No, it's not about just what I want as an individual. If we can become fully sovereign, yes, we will have our individual needs met. Absolutely. But having your needs met is not the same thing as having all of our egoic desires met. Those are two very different experiences. And so I would like to see a shift in these law of attraction type teachers, to shift out of this selfish mode that they have been teaching and propagating, and start talking about how we can co-create a reality together. Because see, we're already co-creating, we're already all influencing each other. Our thoughts are influencing each other's thoughts. When we live in close proximity to people, we influence each other dramatically. We're already co-creating. It's just most people are either unaware of the co-creation, or they are distracted by the idea that they create the entirety of their reality, and so they're focusing on just themselves and what suits them. But if we can become aware of the truth, which is that we are all co-creating this experience of reality together. All of the good and the bad is all being done with 7 point whatever billion people on the planet, along with an unknown number of beings in the astral realm that are also influencing us. If we can understand what's going on, understand the truth, and join in a way of co-creating a globally sovereign reality where every person is sovereign, yet at the same time we all have all of our needs met. Every person, every child, doesn't matter where they live, sub-Saharan Africa, etc., that every single person has those basics provided for. And at that point, human creativity will be unleashed to a level that we can't even comprehend right now. When no one has to worry about the basics of survival, when no one has to go to a crappy job that they hate to deal with a boss that they can't stand, when no one has to do anything that they don't necessarily want to do, unless, of course, like there's always going to be tasks that are maybe unpleasant that people will volunteer for certain types of maintenance and such, that a couple hours a week we spend some time doing maybe the more mundane things, but it's 2 hours out of our week rather than 40 hours out of our week putting energy into a job or a career that is meaningless. So that's the ultimate, let's say, collective consciousness that I would like to see unfold. I already do see it in the early stages of its unfolding. This greater awakening is underway. It's of course happening slower than we want it to, because we're all conditioned to want things instantly. We want instant gratification, but I see it occurring. I see it coming. I don't necessarily have a date like you have, a quite pretty specific time frame there, but I do see it being very possible that the larger awakening will occur amongst enough of a percentage of the populace where we are focusing on that greater goal for the betterment of every single person, rather than people who are currently more focused on themselves only and the betterment of themselves. When we can shift to the betterment of everyone, because when we have 7 billion plus sovereign beings who don't have to sweat the details of their basic survival, like I said, that creativity that will be unleashed is going to be amazing to behold. The scientific breakthroughs are going to be coming at such a rapid pace, because there won't be the myopic, selfish blocking of inventions and technologies. Rather, we'll come to that understanding that what is good for everyone is good for the individual. So when we can promote that greater common good, we're promoting our own upliftment as well. So we'll have sovereignty and we'll have global unity, and it won't be hierarchical, it won't be externally imposed, it won't have violence underpinning it, it won't need any of that. It'll be organic.
I have an expression that's probably offensive to people, but they also never get what I'm saying. And it's basically like hustlers like to be hustled. So
yeah.
when you're in the games and the matrix, you really attract people that keep you in the game. And so whether that's being at your job where you're forced to manipulate or deceive people in some way, you basically rolling in a negative merit. So you'll attract basically untruth, and that's sort of what I've seen about religion and people attracted to that stuff. Some of the light workers I met are actually the lowest quality people, yet they have this intention. But the world is playing in a game of lies, and that time is coming to an end now. And I personally quickened a lot of energy, so things do sort of fall apart. And I've been doing that for over 2 years, very publicly, even though most people probably have not taken it very seriously. But the way to bust out, and there will be a group that busts out, is to step into truth and to stop playing the game and to stop beating the matrix. There is, of course, going to be a large group that stays in the matrix and really wants to be a slave to it for the comforts. But the comforts are going to become uncomfortable. So these conversations and these interviews are leading people that want to be free. And the step starts with getting out of that game. The important thing to understand is because I'm on the inside, I do understand how things work. that things like the law of attraction, they're half-truths. And a lot of these New Age philosophies or movements, positivity movements, are created to give the creators of it energy. And a lot of it is very intentional. And I think people have a misunderstanding that just because someone's smiling and seems positive, that they have good intentions. The person that creates the thing gets the energy from the thing. On the insider circles, if you're in certain movements, whether it's Masonic or the deeper, more powerful Illuminati things, there's reward in deceiving people because, as you said, it works on levels, right? And you climb levels, both on sort of the positive side and the negative, on the sort of evil side, by making contributions. So if you decide to break free, you have to, one, learn the things that we're talking about, which is navigating your way out of that control, but also learn that there is a real, not biased way that this world works, which is energy. And that's what the Illuminati does, is they're powerful through energy, and it's not good or bad. You could judge it that way, but the bottom line is, he who has the energy and knows how to manage it better is really going to control their personal game or the world however they want. So people out there looking to break free think they need to really look at what is my gift in the world, and they just start working on that, moving into the world and activating it. Forget about money and start looking at things energetically. What is my contribution? The point of this interview was not anything other than following a contribution that I was led to make, particularly for one person, but hopefully even if hundreds of people, let's say even 200 people, decide they're going to break free and they step into their contribution, that is a tremendous movement of energy on the good side, meaning those people are going to go out and live and make their contributions. Maybe it's some incredible scientific gift, or just even having a great life in some, more personal way. We flowed that energy, and that's the solution here, is that understanding that it's an energy game. Parasites, archons, demons, whatever you want to call them, and the matrix itself is about receiving energy. I'm saying the matrix as this control system on Earth. It's the fake reality imposed on souls so they can come here and get stuck and basically give the controllers game. The Illuminati are not to blame. So I've played this game at a lot of different levels, and we talked earlier personally about there's an astral level and then there's a physical participant. But you have to understand that this is an energy game. So if you want to give away your energy and get the reward, that's great. If you want to break free, you can, and there's a way to do that. But if you're still attracted to lies and playing games and manipulating people and the illusions of comfort or whatever it is, you're going to stay stuck in the system. So I think we've clearly outlined it. But again, I want to point out, how can someone test themselves? You say, I am sovereign, out loud, or to yourself 3 times, what do you get? I've tested this on myself and a lot of other people, and I found very few people that are sovereign. People are stuck in the system, and they're not getting the reward. I mean, you get the reward by being in your gift and making an incredible contribution and investing in that contribution. So I think both of us and a lot of other people have done that, whether it's in business or spirituality, helping people. The important thing is to get the contribution moving, to put that in motion. I used to have a system that I showed people how to thrive in that system, in your specialty or in your gift. And it really works because of the energy move. It's not about money. The money is another form of slavery. The money is a medium of exchange, but it's not the only medium of exchange to get the energy to power up what you want to power up.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that?
Oh,
a natural, organic way of living instead of buying into the system and being a slave to that, which is totally okay. Just know that there is a system, and if you want the comforts of it, that's fine. But there's also another way for the people that want to be free, that want to feel better, that want to. Ultimately, you could still be having all these same experiences that everyone else is having, but at least have the knowledge that you are a free being. Whether even if you subject yourself, you can exit when you want to exit. And when you leave this plane, realize like you should not be returning here because of some coercion that you're to live out karma. You know, one of my private teachers a very long time ago said karma is perpetual evil. And you talk of these beings, the lords of karma, talking you into coming here and obligating you to take on these pains and these horrific life experiences, in essence, to feed the matrix.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think, like you outlined very nicely, the key here is to find your individual talent, for everyone to follow what they have passion over, and to also be aware that the passions can shift. So maybe something that a person used to be passionate about, now not so much. So at that point, go ahead and let that particular thing go, let that path go, and go towards where you do feel some passion, where you do feel excited about doing it, where when it's done, you've done a day's work, so to speak, in that particular field or arena, and you feel energized as a result of it. You feel good that you did it. You're glad you did it. The kind of thing that you would do anyways, even if you weren't getting money for it. And yeah, maybe you have to start off and you're not getting money for it, so you have to keep working a job somewhere while you do the thing that's your passion. But the person can build that until it actually does begin to produce those dollars that they can use for their survival.
What would you say the ultimate objective should be for someone that comes in and incarnates into this world? Once they learn you're free, let's say people get some of the points we've made, decide to be free, what would you say, why should souls be here incarnating? What's the benefit of incarnating here and having a human experience?
Creative expression, bottom line. I know it sounds overly simplistic, but to me, I view the physical universe as a creative expression. It's the ultimate art project, if you will, of beings from a subatomic or even a subquantum reality that I call source reality. That we made a physical universe to then come into and have creative expression through the forms of physicality. So whatever creativity moves you, whether it's science, art, music, teaching, healing, bodywork, whatever it is, that is the highest expression. To whatever you feel passionate about, whatever creative expression that you can contribute to others, that's the meaning of life as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed. Experience, essentially.
Yeah, but experience in creative expression, right? Because we're having we're having a lot of experiences right now, but they're not necessarily that good for us. They're not particularly creative in many aspects. So, just experience alone doesn't cut it, because you can have some horrible experiences and it doesn't actually fulfill your true purpose.
I'm speaking in purity now, the experience of the purity of what you need to express, and that's in my little service called name reading. I have sort of a understanding that each person has a particular blueprint that you're born into, and it's not slavery, it's just an energy that's going to feel comfortable to you that you make the biggest contribution.
Mm-hmm.
So experiences coming from that place, and you can thrive in that, and depending on, how the size of your contribution is going to depend on, it's going to factor in how much reward you're going to have or how much energy you have to manifest the things you want. But ultimately, yes, the creation is just, the way that I see it is just an expansion, and it's very non-biased, so we might want to label something good and bad. Not to sound too Illuminati here, but that really is the truth, that there is aspects working against you and aspects working for you, but it's all part of the same thing. So as a human, I think you need to look at the fact that you're part of everything, You have a choice in what you want to do. But the sort of fundamental should be that we understand that we're free beings. And if you want to participate in slavery, that's totally fine. But you have a right to be free of that. And you have a right to self-defense. So I know sort of the light and love, light worker, and even the Christians, and a lot of people refuse to defend themselves against parasitic attack. Unfortunately, the whole system is basically built on a parasitic system. But still, you have the right to defend yourself, right? To these beings, you can say, no, I refuse to participate, right?
Absolutely.
We're breaking the contract.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, self-defense is a key aspect. If you know you're sovereign, then you know no other being has the right to harm you or to rob you of anything, whether it's your energy or your physical property.
In saying that, I want to make sure that I'm not trying to preach the false religion of positivity, because the whole light and love thing, I think, is, I know for a fact it's a creation of delusion to empower those people controlling with more energy. So I know you mentioned on your site, speaking truth and expressing yourself. I believe in really free expression. I think there's a very fast way to clear yourself by getting into that truth. You have the light and love. I've noticed, years ago, one of my former attorneys all of a sudden started putting light and love in his signature line. And the minute he did that, I knew he was out. I just knew he was on his way out as one of my attorneys. And there's this, false church of positivity. And you have articles on your website about exiting the light worker phase. I've never been attracted to the light worker thing, and I've never been attracted to New Age concepts. A couple in the past, but mostly those people run from me. I mean, they really run from me. And a lot of the channeler friends I've had will turn on me as soon as I'm not with them. They turn, and all of a sudden they're not light and love anymore. I'm evil. They like to label me evil. I've even had, light worker groups. I had one particular light worker group. They had a whole group that got together and just basically prayed against me, used their energy against me. This was a group that was supposed to be all positive and for the best welfare of, the world. But in the background, mostly the threats I've received are from New Age people, Christian people, very religious people. I've actually never been threatened by a Muslim. That's sort of, Muslim and Buddhists have never threatened me. But there is these people that believe in this church of positivity. There is no bad. If there's nothing that can go wrong, it's all, it's just a bunch of bullshit. I mean, what would you say? Because I know you've addressed this somewhere in your writings. I saw you mention the sort of positivity cults.
Sure.
They like to run from the truth, actually. As long as it's positive, they're willing to run from the truth and deny the truth exists. So they're stuck in this another branch of slavery.
Right. And that's just it. If we're not willing to look at the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, then we're going to be ignorant and therefore able to be manipulated and put into a state of slavery or bondage of some type. So the people that refuse to look at anything negative, they are essentially blinding themselves to many of the truths of this world, because unfortunately this world and the astral environment around it is in pretty bad condition at the moment. So in order to turn things around, we have to first acknowledge the problem, right? We have to acknowledge the way things are so that we can then begin to formulate ideas for how to improve it and make it better. Now, a lot of this will be organic. It will come down to people essentially recognizing the system for what it is, looking at that darkness, confronting that darkness, deciding that they are not going to be a part of it, breaking from it, and then engaging in a positive way their true passion, their true life mission, if you will. But they are not going to get to that point unless they first look at the problem and break away from that and stop feeding energy, stop feeding their time and life force into that particular enslaving matrix. Now, so the idea that there are no bad experiences, well, I definitely do disagree with that, and that's part of that positivity cult. That it's all just experience, and they'll tell them, oh, it was a soul contract. Well, you know what? I'll tell you about contracts and agreements made at the astral level are always based in deception, and they're always set up to take energy from a person, or perhaps to even victimize a person, to the point of getting that person to agree to some level of victimization. Now, at the same time, a lot of what happens, especially abuse against children, no one can, with any measure of credibility, no one can say, well, that was just that child's soul creation. They created that for themselves. It's too bad that they got abused like that. Now, if somebody actually says that, they are missing a huge part of their own humanity. They're missing a huge amount of compassion, and they're missing the bigger picture. They've been blindsided by the light, because the false light can blind a person, and it can blind them into ignoring the truth of certain bad, evil, negative, whatever you want to call it, experiences. The fact that there are psychopaths in this world, there are psychopaths in the astral realm as well. They are predatory, they are looking for victims, and if a person is in the la-la land of the super, only going to look at love and light and never look at anything bad, because looking at it would give it energy, they are eventually going to be victimized, or they're already in the process of being victimized by that greater astral deception.
Again, the key here is staying in the truth and in contribution. In my opinion, the contribution is huge, because if you are behaving like a parasite, you're subject to the rules of that game, which are basically you move in untruth, and in that untruth, you are manipulated by beings that are much more intelligent than you, and you may be, and probably are, entirely influenced by them, right? So I really do believe that most of the population, no offense, is possessed and are slaves to these beings and to the system itself, which is an entirely sort of demonic, parasitic system that the power players know how to manipulate. And it's time for the change for those that want it. So I hope we're reaching those people. Very non-fancy, unstructured interview here, but I did feel very drawn to do this. It came as sort of an inspiration for one person, but I hope it helps at least several hundred. And if we get a lot of feedback and people are responding, then I'll keep delivering this content. Because there's a lot to share here, and it's time. We are in that time of revelation. It doesn't mean that we're the scene of the world. It's sort of the end of the matrix as we know it, and that is playing out heavily right now, and it's going to increase, and there's going to be dramatic stuff, and a lot of people are probably going to leave the planet. And they're going to find that 2008 was really not as bad as what's coming up. The reason that's happening is because the system needs to be broken. So whether there are people benefiting from that breakdown or not, in the big picture, it is what needs to happen, because the system is a false system. And in 2019, we get a chance to start the liberation. And it will, as I have seen it, split people. So there'll be some people on the side of, yes, we need that change, and some people are going to want to label that as this horrific biblical thing, but in reality, it's exactly where we need to go. We need to break. For whatever reason, the divine set the timing it did for this experience, and that this experience of deception is trying to close itself out.
I agree, and in fact, when I interact with these astral parasites, I'm seeing more and more of them actually wanting clemency, if you will. Healing, really, is what it boils down to. They are exhausted, in a sense, with the role that they have played. And it's not just that they're actors, but that they have gone so far into this experiment. That's how I view what they did. I think they started off experimenting with using free will to take away the free will of others and getting people to use their own free will to give up their free will. Something that was a novel idea once upon a time, but now we are all really bored and tired of it. And even these beings, not all of them, but many of them in the astral parasitic realm, they actually do want that healing. And so what I do is I send them to the core of the galaxy where there are a huge amount of extremely source-aligned beings who help them to go through their own particular healing process, to jettison their parasitic nature that they have adopted and to ultimately return back into the source reality that they have stretched so far away from. So evil is essentially bored with itself, is how I see it.
We're moving into a future where it's not really, it doesn't fit into the future, and I'm not saying that things are just going to be all good and dandy, because they're not. There's going to be a lot of people going through heartbreak in the future, but we're going somewhere with all this, and I think I really want to make that point, because I've been very accurate in the prophecies I've received. The prophecies I've received, and that's what I've learned, is that I don't like to play guessing games with the future. I do see outcomes, and there's a line of prophecy that I've been seeing being delivered. It's going to be a very confusing time for a lot of people, because some people are going to want to come in with their doctrine that this is the Antichrist. Christians, of course, say the Jewish Messiah is the Antichrist, and there's this confusion. But it is moving forward, but it's going to be dramatic. Specifically, seen anything about the future where you can really say this?
I don't like to play the prophecy game.
Well, it's happening. So,
but that's just it. I see what's happening now, right? And so I can project out where I see it going, and I do see it ultimately coming to that place where the system falls apart to the extent that almost no one can deny it anymore. That the system itself is parasitic and evil. But see, right now we're still at this phase where people who are quote unquote waking up, they're in this mode where they really just want the system to be fixed somehow, so they can just go back to being a cog in the machine. They can just go back to sleep, and just the system will perpetuate itself. So it is going to have to fall apart to an extent where even the most hypnotized person says, "Wow, this sucks. We need to do something better." and that is coming. Like I said, I can't really put a finger on a date, but yeah, it's certainly pressing in harder and harder. Every year it gets more and more obvious to more and more people. I mean, the amount of people now that are talking openly about all of this stuff, right? And how corrupt government is, how corrupt the media is, how the media is lying to people constantly, how bad vaccines are. Right? People are waking up to the problems and pointing out those problems. It's so dramatically different now than it was 10 years ago. I mean, it's a night and day difference. So it's going to continue to progress. 2019 sounds good. Sooner the better. Let's make it happen.
I think I want to make a point there that good and bad, negative, positive, whatever this stuff is, to some degree, there's still game there, and I think people need to be aware of that and go back to the big picture, because whoever polarizes people and directs their attention, whether you want to call it a psyop or whatever, that person benefits from the energy.
Absolutely.
And we need to think about that in the future. And I know you wrote about that in one of your blog articles. I read that. The deciding factor for individuals in the future is your discernment or your intuition. Knowing, staying grounded in yourself, knowing what you need to do in the moment without effort. It doesn't take effort to have discernment or intuition. It's just a judgment what the energy is happening. So as things start to change, and you get a sense, hey, I should move, or stock up on stuff. I had a lot of water prophecy that I've shared with people, and I haven't really publicly shared it. I sort of mentioned it a couple days ago, but I haven't really explained it. Having the discernment to know what you need to do is key for the future, and the revealing of all this exposure of the crap coming to surface to be able to judge what's relevant to you and what you need to know. You deal with teaching people discernment too, right? So to me, it's a very simple thing to understand. You just really have to work on it and develop the intuitive muscles so you can discern stuff. But what do you teach people about being discerning, about using that intuition?
Well, it starts with recognizing that we're being manipulated on many different levels and beginning to pierce each of those veils of manipulation one after the next, and not being afraid to do that, right? Standing in that frequency that says, I want the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. So that as we can then pierce the various illusions that we've labored under or believed in, that discernment gets better and better to the point where, a lot of people have been involved in a lot of deceptive activities, not knowing that they've been deceived. So admitting, first of all, to oneself that we've been deceived, that's really important. A lot of people get stuck right there. They won't admit it to themselves. They won't admit that the group that they're with, whatever that group might be, has been deceiving them on some level, that the philosophy that they followed has been flawed, or the being that has brought that philosophy to them has had a parasitic agenda. So we have to admit the truth to ourselves. And like you mentioned earlier, people lie to themselves a lot, right? We have to stop lying to ourselves. We can't do that. We have to be completely honest with ourselves, completely honest with the good and the bad, so that when something new, quote unquote, new comes along that tries to polarize people, to push them into, well, you're either with us or against us, right? That we say, no, you know what, I'm not going to pick either one of those sides because they both look flawed to me. Both of these sides are espousing an ideal or a philosophy that I view as limited and manipulated. So I'm going to take the truth from both of those sides and stand here in the middle with the maximum amount of truth that the people on the two sides don't want to admit to, right? Because if we look at any of the polarizations, the false dichotomies that are imposed on people, whether it's political or social or religious, whatever these polarities are, each side has a little bit of truth and they have a whole bunch of distortion. So to discern, to pick through those different arguments, to pick out what's true and pick out what's false and then put it aside, that's extremely important. So I just help people to look at things honestly and to ask questions, to question everything, right? To not just take something at face value, but to question it, to test it, to see how it feels, to see what kind of gut reaction they have, to see how their heart responds to certain things, to see what the two halves of their brain can discern from a particular situation.
And that's the key. So I just want to remind anyone that's listening here and really wants to start breaking free. This is not meant to replace medical or professional advice, but this is spiritual counseling and discernment. To cultivate your truth. Cultivate your truth. Be in truth. Participate in. If you want to break free, do not participate in manipulation or agendas that are about manipulation. And make your contribution all the time. Get your contribution moving big so you have the energy to deal with this. There is an organic defense, which is being in your contribution. If you're moving in a big energy because your contribution is huge, there's a natural defense there against parasitic stuff. I think most people, if they looked at it, would realize a lot of parasitic attack comes when you're at your lowest point. So it's like when you're down, they want to kick you down. people want to kick you down, but also the astral parasites work on the same thing. So a natural self-defense is to be out there making your contribution. And I've just found over the years of counseling thousands of people, they know their truth. So if you choose to blow that off, that's your choice. But if you're feeling like, hey, I need to make this painting and just show people, just do it. And keep that natural truth moving. Build up your energy and learn to discern and break free of these contracts of slavery.